Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to Sylvania City Council meeting for January 21st, 2025. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Hanson?
Here.
Mr. Hayden?
Here.
Mr. McCann?
Here.
Mr. Richardson?
Here.
Ms. Stout? Here. Mrs. Westfall?
Here.
All six members of Sylvania City Council are in attendance, so a quorum does exist. And this evening we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Hayden. Join us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have one addition to the agenda, which we'll do is call it 5D, which is the appointment of Mr. Sean Murphy to the open council seat. Mrs. Westfall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to add the committee assignments to the agenda.
We'll call that 13A.
Perfect.
Anything else? Members of council, anything want to be added to the agenda?
Mayor Fry, I would like to add a scheduling of a streets committee meeting, please.
Okay. We'll call that 13B then.
Thank you.
Other members of council, anything to add to the agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the council agenda as amended?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the council agenda for January 21st, 2025 as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried, and the council agenda as amended is what we're going to run with. Yeah, tongue-tied to this evening. Okay, on to the approval of council minutes. Mrs. Westfall, we have two things: the special council meetings of January 6th, and then the regular council meetings from January 6th as well. So,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move approval of the January 6th, 2025 minutes of the special meeting of Sylvania City Council as submitted.
Second.
we have a motion and a second to approve the special council meeting minutes of January 6th, 2025 as submitted. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Regular council meeting, Mrs. Westfall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would move approval of the January 6th, 2025 minutes of the regular Sylvania City Council meeting as submitted.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the regular council meeting minutes as submitted. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. The regular council meeting minutes of January 6, 2025 are approved. Committee reports, Mrs. Westfall, we've got 3 committee reports. The Committee of the Whole on June 14th, June 16th for the Committee of the Whole, and then Committee of the Whole meeting held earlier this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I will begin with the January 14th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting that was held at 7:30 a.m. The purpose was to review city council applications. All members of council were present, as well as Mayor Mark Fry and Law Director Leslie Briney. Opened up the meeting and determined that we were going to focus on the process for identifying and securing the right appointee to the city council seat. But before we started on that, we did have a special request from Kevin Armstrong to consider an exception for his application. The council discussed that briefly and determined that based on missing the actual deadline, it was not something we could accommodate at this time, but we certainly encourage Mr. Armstrong to apply in the future. All applications for the open city council seat had been forwarded to all members of council. There were actually 6 applications, and all members of council did have a chance to review them in advance. And based on process, council members did submit a ranking of the candidates to determine which ones would move forward with the interview process. Based on that ranking, Mr. Bossinger, Mr. Clark, Mr. Murphy, and Ms. Sater all had at least 1 vote that had been expressed by council members that they would like to interview them. Mr. Haddad and Mr. Vogel did not have any votes at that time. So further discussion, it was determined that we would move forward only with the candidates who had already had some support from council members. So the 4 candidates that the council members had identified as of interest did move forward. The group did then determine that I would reach out to them, to all of the candidates, and let them know, and so I did. Additional discussion focused on the Thursday night meeting and what the process would be there. Mr. Hayden moved to adjourn the meeting at 7:50 a.m. and Mr. Hanson seconded that, and the meeting adjourned at 7:50 a.m. Anything else from council that you feel like I missed? Perfect. The January 16th meeting was when we actually interviewed the candidates. All members of council were present, as well as the candidates, Chris Bassinger, Mark Clark, Sean Murphy, Jennifer Sater, and Anthony Haddad joined us. He is someone who applied, and we were pleased to have him with us. I opened up the meeting and explained the process to the candidates, let them know what the responsibilities of serving on council were, and let them know what the formal vote process would be. With that, we did interview the top 4 candidates in alphabetical order. So Mr. Bassinger, Mr. Clark, Mr. Murphy, and Ms. Sater were all provided a formal interview, and they were asked questions by council members. Following the interviews, the council members took a ballot vote regarding which candidates would move forward, and those results were Sean Murphy, 3 votes, Chris Bassinger, 2 votes, and Jennifer Sater, 1 vote. All 3 candidates were invited to join us back here tonight for the January 21st Committee of the Whole meeting, where we would go through another process of ballot voting. Marcus Hanson moved to adjourn the meeting at 7:40 p.m., and Doug Hainan seconded that, and the motion passed. And then finally, tonight, we had the January 21st, 2025 Committee of the Whole began at 7 p.m. The goal was to make the final decision on the council seat. Present were all members of council, and from administration, we had the Economic Development Director, Bill Sanford, Chief Miller, Service Director, Joe Shaw, Law Director, Mrs. Bryan, and Clerk of Council, Ms. Bigelow, and Mayor Fry joined us as well. I welcomed all the candidates who were present, Sean Murphy, Chris Bassinger, Jennifer Sater, and let them know that we were very grateful for all of the strong candidates. We had 6 really strong candidates. We had narrowed it down to 3, and we were grateful for the strong candidates that stepped forward. We did then talk a little bit about the process, and I moved the group to a ballot vote. Mrs. Brining tallied those votes, and then I read them aloud, and the votes were as follows. Chris Bassinger, 1 vote, Sean Murphy, 5 votes, Jennifer Sater, 0 votes. So that meant that Sean Murphy had the required 4-vote minimum. Mr. Hainan moved that we advance the appointment of Sean Murphy to the City Council meeting this evening, and Brian McCann seconded it, and hearing no objections, this vote passed unanimously. There were a couple other minor issues. I handed out the committee assignments sheet and reviewed that quickly with the City Council members, and we had a brief discussion about fireworks, determining that the fireworks will now be the responsibility of the Employee and Community Relations Committee. Doug moved to adjourn at 7:09. Brian seconded, and motion passed. So with that, can I make that motion?
Please.
Okay. So at this time, I move that we appoint Sean Murphy as to the open seat on Sylvania City Council.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to appoint Mr. Sean Murphy to the open seat on Sylvania City Council. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Congratulations. And Mr. Murphy, we come up and the law director will swear you in and then you can assume your seat. Hold on.
Hold on, wait for the press.
Media, we gotta worry about.
The fourth estate.
Yeah.
You want that logo in the background. So pose.
I don't need those things.
I do solemnly
solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
in the presence of Almighty God
in the presence of Almighty God
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States,
of the United States,
the Constitution
the
of
Constitution
the State of Ohio,
of the State of Ohio,
and the Charter of the City of Sylvania,
and the Charter of the City of Sylvania,
and will faithfully discharge
and will faithfully discharge
the duties of the public office
the duties of the public office
of Member of Council of the City of Sylvania.
of Member of Council of the City of Sylvania.
Congratulations.
Come on, Sean, get a seat. We got a rip-roaring agenda, man.
Sorry, there's no name sign.
Sean, that's a lucky seat. That's where I started sitting in a long time ago, so. Lots of wisdom between those two people each year.
I can imagine so. Do you want me to date this too, or just sign it? What is today? Today's the 21st, right?
I'm assuming we can decide that before we can. Just want to verify. Moving on to the agenda. Mr. Shaw portion of the meeting, so Mr. Shaw, take it away for agenda item number 6.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of council. Thank you. Congratulations, Mr. Murphy. We have 2 items in the streets department. This is 6 on your agenda. So for this particular one, as you may recall, in the 25 budget, we did not purchase salt material. Our hoppers were completely full, and this is a great opportunity for us to replace a piece of equipment that's in need with those salt funds that we usually use this time of year. So we operate a 2008 CAT wheel loader for our snow and ice control operations. We're having a lot of issues with this particular piece of equipment, with it rusting. We have to have a tank specially fabricated and made for it if we were to continue with the piece of equipment. There's also a couple hydraulic lines and some other things that need done, but we're estimating about $20,000 to $25,000 to do all the repairs that are necessary on the piece of equipment. In our opinion, we believe that the piece of equipment is gone beyond its useful life for us, and we'd like to purchase a replacement. So in front of you in your council packet is a Hyundai HL 940A, which is another wheel loader. This piece of equipment would come to us from Buckanabe at a purchase price of $181,150. They are offering us a trade-in value of $26,000 for our existing piece of equipment, making the total cost of the piece of equipment for us $155,150. So like I said, we programmed this into our 2025 budget. This one using funds from the 223 account we usually do with salt purchases. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Shaw?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Hanson?
Mr. Shaw, just curious, with your knowledge, 2008, about 17 years, is that typical? Could we expect this one to last 17 years, or is that longer than?
Wonderful in the environment that it operates in. Our salt loader areas for 4 months when it sits there is highly caustic, and we do a really good job. Jason's great with hydraulic lines, but they do get to a point at some point where you can't do them anymore. So 17 years on this piece of equipment, I'm thrilled with.
Good. Thank you. Other questions for Mr. Shaw? If not, we have ordinance number 12, 2025. Mr. Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance number 12, 2025. I will read by title only. Authorizing the mayor and director of finance to accept the proposal of Buckanabe Equipment Company, Inc. with a trade-in for the purchase of a new Hyundai HL 940A wheel loader for snow and ice control operations for the Division of Streets, Department of Public Service, appropriating $155,150. Therefore, I move passage as an emergency measure.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 12, 2025 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carried. Thank you very much. And ordinance number 12, 2025 is approved as an emergency measure. Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next item on your agenda stays in the streets department. The year listed on our asphalt paving vibratory roller is correct. That says 1993. That is really amazing to believe, but another, again, testament to what happens in our street department when we maintain our equipment and do a good job repairing it, how long we can keep pieces of equipment. So that's our piece of equipment. Past 2 paving seasons, and we don't do a tremendous amount of paving. We're not doing miles of road like sometimes City of Toledo does, but certainly a lot of pavement patches, parking lots, what have you with it. So be able to get 30-some years out of that piece of equipment is great. But we're having, the last 2 years, we've had to rent pieces of equipment just because it hasn't worked, and that's not great, right? We have a light-duty piece of equipment and we're renting it. That doesn't make sense. So our guys have done their due diligence and would like to replace the current vibratory roller with the one listed there, an Amman ARX26. It's a light tandem vibratory roller. There's a picture of it in your packet in case you want to see what that piece of equipment looks like. Again, coming from Buckinami at a purchase price of $43,775. This piece of equipment was programmed again into the budget, again using the 223 account where salt would usually be present at.
Mr. Shaw, the existing piece of equipment in 1993, the equipment, is that something we're going to put on gov deals once we get the new equipment? Any questions?
That ought to be interesting.
Can't wait.
Maybe the Smithsonian will do it.
There's a lot of old-time pavers around that might use that thing, so we'll see. We'll see.
Damage for equipment pieces or parts or whatever. Any questions from members of council? If not, we have ordinance number 13, 2025 for consideration. Mr. Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance number 13, 2025. I'll read by title only. Authorizing the mayor and director of finance to accept the proposal of Buckinami Equipment Company, Inc. for the provision of 1 new asphalt paving roller for the Division of Streets, Department of Public Service, appropriating $43,775 therefore, and I move passage as an emergency measure.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 13, 2025 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carried, and ordinance number 13, 2025 is approved as an emergency measure. Moving on to our Laredo purchase. Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This one, we switch departments. We move to sewer and water for this particular one. This is for a replacement for our oops locating vehicle that we use in our fleet. The existing vehicle that we have is a 2018 Jeep Cherokee, so we're actually replacing it with the same type of vehicle. This one has 77,439 miles on it, which in a 6-mile square town, that's quite a few. This is probably one of the hardest operated vehicles that we have, less our police force, where those vehicles run really hard. This one's pretty similar to that, 5 days a week. Strobe lights flashing, driving around, running constantly. So this is a pretty heavy used vehicle in our fleet. So the goal with this piece of equipment would be to move it to our zoning department. Mr. Burns, our zoning administrator, operates a 2003 Chevy Trailblazer. And the idea is to shuffle that around with that Trailblazer moving to gov deals at a later time. So again, replacing it with a very similar type of vehicle. The Cherokee's worked out well in terms of where equipment goes and how it's stored and everything that goes with it. So we'd like to get the replacement of 2024 to be purchased from Grogan's Town Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram. That's in Toledo there at a purchase price of $44,000. What we do with this, because it's split between our water and sewer accounts, half of the funds would come from the 701 account that's listed there. The other half would be coming from the 702 account that's listed there. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have on the oops vehicle.
I just have a comment.
Mrs. Westphal.
As I was first reading your explanation here, I was like, 77,000 miles, that's not very many, but then I saw that you are going to repurpose the vehicle. So I just wanted to say I'm grateful that you're finding a new home for the vehicle while we move forward with getting what is needed in a more reliable vehicle for the main purpose.
Mr. Shaw, I'm just curious if Mr. Burns is going to be able to handle the upgrade.
He's more thrilled about this than I am about the, what we'll get on Gov Deals for the roller, so, yeah, he's thrilled. As you can tell, we do a good job of trying to trade down. And keep vehicles within the fleet as long as we can.
Any other questions from members of council? If not, we have ordinance number 14, 2025 for consideration. Mr. McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce by title only ordinance number 14-2025, authorizing the mayor and director of finance to accept the proposal to program the town Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram for the provision of a new 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo for the Department of Public Service. I move passage of ordinance number 14-2025 as an emergency measure.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 14, 2025 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. And ordinance number 14, 2025 is approved as an emergency measure. Parks and Forestry, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Switching departments, Parks and Forestry with this particular one. This is a new piece of equipment. Anytime we get new pieces of equipment, I ask for like a demo. Okay, what are we doing with this? How is this going to change? We're not replacing anything. What goes along with it? So Parks and Forestry brought this one particular piece of equipment to me. This is a Vermeer mini skid steer. There's a picture of it in your packet so you can see what it looks like. But the way Margie had framed it to me is this thing is a lot smaller. It's a lot easier to transport and move around, but it's also extremely versatile in what it does for us. She mentioned in storm damages, a lot of times we're taking a large piece of equipment to move trees. It goes on a big trailer. It needs a big truck to pull it. This particular piece can go just on the back of a truck on a really small trailer, and it's really versatile. I don't know if you looked at the lifting capacity of it, but you can move trees that are falling from storm events really easily with it. You get a grappling hook that goes with it, loaded on the truck, and you can move pretty quick. It also digs holes really quick, so if you're doing mass tree plantings like we do at times, it's just zipping an auger through real quick through, so it's super nice with that. So, and in addition to the general things that it does around the Parks and Forestry garage with moving things, taking things off of pallets, all those different kinds of things. So she kind of sold me on it. I like it. I'm excited to see it in action. I know they are extremely excited to have a piece of equipment. So that's the reason we're moving forward with that. So this was in the 2025 budget. This is a 401 account item with the number listed there. They are looking to purchase it from Vermeer All Roads, and that's in Findlay, Ohio, at a cost of $37,500 for the piece of equipment. Be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Shaw, just out of curiosity, I know that we've had delays in receiving equipment. Is this something that we're gonna see a similar delay on?
No, she said this one's,
Something that's available?
it's available, yes. Yep, we should have it ready to go here in the early part or late part of winter, so.
Any questions from members of council?
This is a new vehicle. A new whatever it would be. It's not used.
It's not used, this is
Yeah,
new,
I just saw something in here that created a little confusion. Sold new with, okay.
new piece of equipment.
Further questions from council members?
I have a question, just the attachments that are here, I guess, future purpose, you can buy other, because it looks like there's the big,
Yeah, they wanted specific purposes for trees, so the grappling hook was definitely one that they wanted to include with it. But also, this one comes with, they're asking for pallet forks so that they can unload and load trucks at their garage with it too. Those are the two attachments that they've asked for it in addition. She didn't suggest that they would need anything else.
They're available.
The auger they already have, and it would work just well with the way it's set up, so.
Other questions from council members? Hearing none, we have ordinance number 15, 2025 for consideration. Mr. Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to introduce by title only ordinance number 15-2025, authorizing the mayor and director of finance to accept the proposal of Vermeer All Roads for the provision of one new Vermeer mini skid steer for the division of Parks and Forestry, Department of Public Service, appropriating $37,500 therefore. I move for passage of ordinance number 15-2025 as an emergency measure.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 15, 2025 as an emergency measure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Ordinance number 15, 2025 is approved as an emergency measure. Moving on to traffic signal improvement. Mr. Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This project's been coming to us for quite some time until we figured out a really good way to fund it, which we did last year, which is great. So we've been looking at doing a traffic signal improvement at Monroe, Main, and Summit. Ever since SOMO was coming about, there's not a great way to get people from SOMO across Monroe Street without going up to Main Street. We talked about improving pedestrian movements at all of our intersections close to our downtown. This would fit the bill. This particular intersection just doesn't have a place for pedestrians to cross. There's no push buttons, there's no signal, there's no crosswalk, there's nothing. Very much old-fashioned way to do things in the late 70s when they were putting traffic signals in. They didn't account a lot for what pedestrians' needs were. We can certainly do better than that. And the equipment needs to be upgraded as well. So this has been in planning for a while, but we were finally able to get some OPWC funds to help us with it. We bundled this particular project with the pedestrian hybrid beacons that we're doing for the schools. We have 4 sites for those. That had federal funds with it. We were able to use the federal funds and leverage those to help us get additional OPWC dollars. And we kind of threw this project in to help us with that. So pretty good. We were of a $476,000 improvement. We were able to get almost $100,000, about 19.5% from the state to give us a hand with it. So the remaining cost of the project, $383,658 would be locally funded. The plan for this particular project would be to wait until our downtown phase 1 is done, which we're anticipating to be late summer or early fall. And then this project would kick into gear. But by doing it and selling it now, it allows us to get our poles ordered, our equipment ordered. That takes sometimes 5 to 6 months at a time for signal projects to do. So by the time all that equipment rolls in, we'll be probably ready to go and start this in the fall. That's the idea. So we're ready to advertise the project for construction. The bids would be opened on February 18th is the way the engineer has it currently scheduled. So happy to answer any questions.
Do you know what kind of particular signal they'll be like? You know, we just put those ones up on her room that you can kind of, people can hit them and cross safely. Would there be some special features, or are you just gonna upgrade the existing stuff?
Yeah, full replacement, new poles, new heads, new push buttons, new cabinet. This is a full replacement of an existing signal. It's a signal now, it'll look like a signal when it's
It
done.
doesn't have a button though to cross now, does it?
No, it doesn't
And it
even
won't
have heads on it either, right?
Other questions from council members? Mr. Chai, I want to thank you, you and your team for the creativity you used in order to secure money for projects like this. Those are something that obviously, as all members of council know, we've been very successful at. And I just wanted to bring that up because this one was something that we could have easily just said, oh, let's just move forward with it rather than trying to bundle it with all the other stuff. So
Thank you, Mayor.
very
Appreciate
much
it.
for that. Mr. Richardson, we have,
Yes, I'll make a motion to authorize the administration to advertise for bids for the Monroe Main Summit Traffic Signal Improvement Project.
Second.
a motion and a second to approve the administration to advertise for bids for the Monroe Main Summit Traffic Signal Improvement Project. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Thank you very much. Mr. Shaw, with Centennial Road Sanitary Engineer, for Sanitary Sewer Extension.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My last piece here tonight is Centennial Road. This is a really small sanitary sewer extension project. We have 3 properties. All of these are on the west side of Centennial that do not have sanitary sewer. Everybody else on Centennial, all the way up to Michigan and down, are currently connected to it. These are the last 3 that are not. So what we'd like to do is take one extension from Doyle and take one pipe underneath Centennial to the west side of the road, and then run one pipe that goes to the south to grab one additional house. But anyways, run it so that we can get all 3 properties connected in the future, right? So what we want to do is provide it available now using the 702 account that's there. So I have one particular property last year that reached out to me to kind of catalyst this. They are interested in connecting to it, so I think we can get somebody connected to it fairly quickly once it's installed. But the estimated cost to do this is $56,205. And the 702 account is where those funds would be coming from to do that. So the goal would be to advertise for bids on January 28th and open on February 18th for that. Construction for it, we've worked closely with Centennial Terrace. It's obviously a busy area for them this time of year. Later in the summer, we've got fireworks that go on in that area. We've got events that go on at the terrace there as well. So we've kind of walked through some of the good time frames to do that. Anytime July through October, we'll pick a window to do this. This is probably maybe a 2 or 3 day closure of Centennial to do it, and all work done probably within 2 weeks. So it's a pretty quick and easy project to do. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mrs. West.
I'm sorry if you said this, Mr. Shaw, and I was asleep at the switch here, but this indicates that it must be completed by October 30th. What is the reason for that?
Asphalt paving. Centennial is a truck route, so we want to make sure we get the sewer in and done, and we get the trench restored so that we have a good asphalt.
Okay.
Mr. Shaw, this brings up a subject that was discussed years ago regarding sewer connect for the city in general. Do we have the list of homes or residences that do not have service, and are we addressing them?
Yeah, we're trying to pick them off as we come. Like when we find small, easy ones like this is an easy one to grab. Most of ours are east of town, north and east. I would say north of Alexis, east of 23. Those are our list is actually quite small, to be honest with you. But when we have opportunities to try to do those, we are trying to connect them and put some sewers in. Last one that we've done was 2014 Arbor Way. I think those people had petitioned us for it. There's a couple more streets up and down that Silvertown area that are in the same boat.
And are we being proactive versus waiting for them to come to us?
If I can couple it with, the way I've always approached it is if I can couple it with a roadway improvement project that I'm doing, so I'm gonna go and dig a 10-foot or 15-foot sewer in the ground, and I also know my road needs to be redone. I'm trying to couple them around those so that we're not, digging in something that had asphalt redone on it 5 years ago. So trying to marry those together sometimes takes a little bit of time to do, but that's what we're trying to do.
Appreciate that update and information. Could we, is there a way to possibly communicate that on our website somehow to say that we are being proactive in that measure? Because we have had questions in the past.
Sure.
I
Absolutely.
don't see why not.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Thank you again.
You bet.
Other questions from council members? If not, we have the Centennial Road Sanitary Sewer Extension Project. Mr. McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Move to authorize the city and administration to advertise for bid for the Centennial Road Sanitary Sewer Extension Project.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the administration to advertise for bids for the Centennial Road Sanitary Sewer Extension Project. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carried. Thank you very much. And we'll get that out for bid. And once we get the responses back to you and with the information on what the numbers look like. Moving on to agenda item number 12, then and now certifications. Mr. Schroyer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, we do these quarterly. These are the then and now certifications of over $3,000 that I'm required to bring before council. All these amounts are included or were included in the budget. I'm open to any questions, but the administration requests your approval.
Any questions?
Mr. Schroyer, I thought the conversation we held this afternoon was helpful, talking about some of the thoughts you have and conversations you've had about and planning in advance for some of the expenses. Could you share a little bit of that?
Sure. The courts had some turnover, but they got somebody in there that's doing their books right now that's doing a good job. And I've had discussions with her on the processes going forward that we've started in January. And I've also had discussions with Chuck and the IT department, because he has a lot of annual maintenance agreements and annual payments. So this list should get shorter as we get forward into 2025. We still have November, December of '24, but once we get into '25, this should be significantly shorter.
Thank you.
Mr. McKay.
Mr. Short, the agreements, the license agreements, et cetera, for IT, are they going to be coterminous? Are we going to a specific date to match up with our fiscal year, or?
You can speak of, they're all pretty much different though. So what Chuck's doing is at the beginning of the year, he's gonna estimate what, even if something might not be due until April, he's gonna estimate what that's gonna be. He's gonna turn a purchase order in beginning of the year. And then when the invoice comes, we can pay, and then we're going through the proper process.
Thank you.
But all his come due at different times, they're not all at once.
Other questions from council members?
I would ask just for my own clarification. So again, not to tie up the meeting time here, but the then and now certifications are like future.
What is that? What that is it's a lot of times it's emergency purchases. The typical process that we're required to go through is a purchase requisition is made, purchase order is created and approved by myself, the finance director, and then the purchase can be made. So when there are instances when we're repairing equipment or something, that they can't wait for that process to happen. They order a part, and now they have an invoice and they send over the purchase.
So this is, you're probably gonna spend around this amount with this particular group, so you're kind of pre-approving. Okay, got it.
And these are items, Mr. Murphy, that are budgeted,
Yeah.
but when the state auditor came in, Mr. Shore, 3 years ago?
Yeah.
Something like that, 2 or 3 years ago, they brought this up and apparently did it in a lot of other communities. It became an item of emphasis by the state of Ohio to make sure that items are, even though they were already budgeted, that they bring those before council for consideration and approval.
The state of Ohio allows us to go around the typical process if we have to, but then it requires council to approve any of those that we do that that are over $3,000.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Other questions from council members? Hearing none, Mrs. Westfall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move that we approve the then and now certifications as presented and on the memo dated January 21st, 2025.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the then and now certifications for Mr. Schroyer's email dated January 21st, 2025. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Schroyer. The next item, we have agenda item 13A, which is the new committee assignments based upon the appointment of Mr. Murphy. Mrs. Westfall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did have a brief discussion about this at the committee of the whole meeting, making sure that everybody was comfortable with where they're placed. So I think we're ready to move forward, and I would move that we approve the Sylvania City Council Committee assignments from January 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2025, as presented on this handout from Penn State.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the modified committee assignments based upon the appointment of Mr. Murphy. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carried, and the new committee assignments will be published and updated in the website and such. Moving on, committee referrals to Streets Committee meeting, Mr. Richardson.
Thank you, Mayor Fry. Yes, there was a request by the administration to hold a Streets Committee meeting to discuss sort of in a broad discussion about roundabouts and to answer any questions. Mr. Shaw had indicated he had prepared a 15 to 20-minute presentation, and we're looking to schedule that for 7 o'clock on March 3rd, which is prior to the council meeting that night. That would give time for the presentation and some questions after, and hopefully start the council meeting right on time. Mr. Hainham, Mr. McCann, and Mr. Murphy is now on the Streets Committee. You guys all going to be around
Yeah, that'll work.
on the March 3rd meeting?
Should be.
Okay. Then I will make a motion to set a streets committee meeting for March 3rd at 7 PM in council chambers to discuss roundabouts.
Second.
Motion and a second to schedule a streets committee meeting for March 3rd, 7 PM, to discuss roundabouts and for general information purposes, here in council chambers.
In council chambers, yes.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried, and we'll have a streets committee meeting on the 3rd of March. Looking forward to that.
And one more thing is that, Mr. Shaw, if anybody has questions before that meeting, email them to you. Is that?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. And if we could advertise that as well?
Yes.
Because I think we've had questions from the general public as well from time to time, so I think that would be helpful information for public to be aware of, and maybe we can get them to come to the meeting as well, or view it later on.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else that needs to come before council this evening?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question on February 3rd. Our next council
February
meeting.
3rd, yep.
Yeah, is there a public hearing that day?
Yes.
And it's at 6:30? For the Foundry Estate. I just want to make sure that I had the right date and time on that, and that other council members did as well.
What are we talking about?
The Foundry Estates
Public hearing.
public hearing, 6:30 on
February 3rd.
February 3rd.
Okay, I don't have that on my calendar.
I think there was some confusion as I talked to other council members today, which is why I wanted to make sure we clarified it today.
It's at 6:30?
Yes.
Is there something after that?
City council meeting at 7:30.
Yeah, nothing.
That's it.
It's
Why do we
tiny-
need an hour for this?
I don't
That
know.
was my question.
Because it's a
Tiny
public
homes.
hearing.
I'm sorry?
It's the tiny homes.
Yeah,
You said it for 6:30, Doug.
I did.
Yes, you did. I was trying to flag you down, Doug.
We'll order pizza afterwards.
Well, we haven't public noticed that. Why don't we change that
Yeah.
to 7?
We already did. There's.
Oh, you have? Yeah,
Advertising.
30 days, okay.
And,
So,
adjacent neighbors.
So we're stuck. You have to-
And we had to send notices to all the adjacent property owners.
did we get a recommendation on that?
Yes.
Yes, against.
Yep.
This was,
What's the number on that?
ZA 3. 2024.
When that was set, we must not have had our 2025 calendars, because I had almost everybody ask me a question about that.
Anything else to come before council this evening? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
second.
Motion second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed. Motion carried, and we are adjourned until our next council meeting at 7:30 PM on February the 3rd. Thank you very much, everybody.